From his incredible performance as Nicholas in The Princess Diaries to his super creepy turn in Don't Worry Darlings, Chris Pine has proved that he's one of the most versatile actors in the industry. So it doesn't surprise me that he's now a part of fantasy and lore, thanks to Dungeons & Dragons: Honor Among Thieves.
So I play Edgin Darvis, who's a bard. They're all different classes in Dungeons & Dragons. I play a bard. My primary skills are organizing, party planning, that sort of thing. Not a lot of sword fighting or anything interesting in that regard.
You might have thought the heartthrob couldn't have pulled it off, but then you'd be wrong, because Pine's work speaks for itself. Reviews from critics have started pouring in, and most of them claim that while the movie is fun, it's Pine's shockingly amazing role as the bard that keeps you interested. Another review stated that Chris Pine proved just why he was one of the most reliable leading men in Hollywood. Whether he's Star Trek's Captain Kirk or Wonder Woman's Steve Trevor, Pine exudes likable, good humor that keeps audiences engaged even if the story leaves more to be desired.
It's a very progressive piece of filmmaking.
Oh, you're in Wonder Woman.
No, I play a guy named Steve Trevor, who is, for all of you that know the lore, Wonder Woman's better half.
And we should have seen this coming. The producer gushed about Pine's abilities and saw something in him that others lacked. And it's surprising that he can not only act so well, but he's good looking too, with charisma for days. Keeping in mind the great reviews, it makes sense why Chris Pine hopes the movie will transport you to another world where none of your problems exist. Sounds lovely, doesn't it? While that isn't really possible, it was nice of Pine to try. But the movie sounds like a blast of the actor's words to be believed. Pine has watched this film more than any other movie he's worked in. Plus, he loves that cinemas are finally open again, and he can see the audience's face while they watch the movie.
The fact that I can do what I do for a living, get paid for it, I love what I do. People seem to be happy occasionally with what I'm doing. To have a group of concerted fans that looks out for your next thing is, God, it's.
To him, people really come alive in a cinema. They talk about the fictional world and its fictional characters and are usually jubilant by the end. So why shouldn't studios spend money on some big budget movies to light up these faces once again? It all sounds very noble, doesn't it? But it's really fun too, because the movie is bound to stir up feelings of nostalgia in most viewers. Pine is an 80s baby himself, and he feels like this movie has the same vibes as some classics like Goonies, Neverending Story, and Indiana Jones.
Yeah, it's really an ensemble film. I play, in Dungeon and Dragon terms, a bard who has no special skills whatsoever other than entertaining people and trying to use their sense of joy to get others to do their bidding.
Maybe even a touch of Pirates of the Caribbean as you move into the 2000s. Well, I don't know about you, but I'm on board. This is just the kind of movie we need. A bit of everything, but with a big heart at its core. And that's what Pine loves about it as well. He thinks the movie is genuine and sweet, which to him is much more important than it is for a movie to be cool. But don't let that fool you into thinking the movie doesn't have any action. Because believe me, there's a whole lot of action, although Pine may not have done any of it. Plainly put, there's a lot of impressive stunt work in the movie. And while it might look like Pine's responsible for it, he isn't. In reality, he didn't do any of the stunts for the film.
Well, they kind of hooked me when they said that my special power is playing the lute and entertaining, and I thought that was something I could figure out. It meant less prep days and less days in the gym, and I was fine with that.
Like, at all. All he does is run. He runs to get away from everything. That sounds like me. While he sat around, he did feel bad for the poor schmucks who got stuck with all the training, though. While he walked the beaches, the stuntmen fugitives stuck with martial arts training. While they got thrown around, Pine read his books and caught up on his Netflix. He had a great time. Sure sounds like it, but the action was not what was important to Pine. He felt that as long as they captured the feel of what it was like to sit around the table and play the game, they'd done what was necessary.
Filmmaking is meant to be fun, and sometimes it's a little bit more fun than other times. This happened to be a great blast and a talented group and fun material and making believe and playing pretend for a living.
The movie is as much about the twists and turns and the crazy jokes as it is about the action. Plus, they didn't really have any existing stories to choose from. D&D is an ever-evolving game that the players create according to their own desires. This movie had to make viewers feel the same sense of thrill and excitement, like they got when making up their own stories filled with monsters and puzzles galore. To be able to include a sense of whimsy into their fantasy space was a nice departure from the more realistic and grounded movies everyone's seeing. And thanks to how enticing the film is, Pine has seen non-gamers also get into the world of D&D. While giving an interview, he learned that the interviewer and his group of friends had started playing D&D, even though none of them had played it before.
I think what John and Jonathan have done so well with this iteration of Dungeons & Dragons is that, at least for me, being an 80s baby, it reminds me of all the great, wonderful qualities of 80s films. It has a bit of The Princess Bride, it has...
Pine exclaimed that this was why he thought the movie was so rad. For some reason, people believe that Dungeons & Dragons is for kids. And yes, that bit is true. Children could use their imagination to create stories and characters which allowed them to get creative. But to say the game is exclusively for them is wrong though. Pine recalled that there was a time when adults played games just like Dungeons & Dragons. So he spends half his time convincing them that D&D is just as fun as anything else they've tried. Pine felt this despite not being that much of a gamer himself. So he missed out on games like Zelda as a kid. And when he sat down to play D&D, he expected to be terrible at it. Just the worst.
Feel good about a project, feel good that it's being seen, feel good that it's like, it's saying nice things about family and working together and that it has a spirit to it that for me reminds me of a film of old or like a Goonies or a...
But he slowly learned that it was kinda impossible to be bad at it. You see, he realized that the game was about acting. Once you figure out who the players in the game are, what the stakes are, and what's expected of you, you simply play pretend. And he loves that. Now, I know what you're thinking. How did a guy like Pine get cast for a movie about D&D when he's never played it? For Dungeons & Dragons Honor Among Thieves star, the journey started with the story. The only way Pine will ever say yes to the script is if he likes it. So when he said yes to playing the role of the bad Edgin, he really did think the story was fantastic. The story didn't feel jaded or cynical or meta, but instead, it was earnest and grounded and heartfelt. This was just another old-fashioned, big-budget movie that the world was bound to love. Thanks to Michael Gillio's screenplay and the efforts of director duo John Francis Daley and Jonathan Goldstein, Honor Among Thieves is a wonderful work of comedy. This is starkly different from some of the darker, more serious fantasy films that have been gaining popularity. The story is simple and to the point. We follow a charming, bard and his group of ragtag friends as they embark on an adventure to save humanity from a dark evil. How will they do so, you ask? By retrieving a magical relic, of course. How else? Pine is very glad to have gotten another opportunity to flex his comedic chops. In fact, he missed it terribly. The last time he'd been in a comedy was in Horrible Bosses 2. He remembered being on set and everyone was laughing. He actually had to take a moment to really let that moment set in. Pine walked up to Jason Bateman, in fact, and told him that he finally understood why he did what he did. Nothing better than being on set for 12 hours a day and laughing through it all. And I can't help but agree too. And that's all I know about Pine's performance in Dungeons & Dragons Honor Among Thieves.